Tyler, welcome to the Beyond Technology podcast. Great to have you on today.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, let's dive into it. Tell me about your business, what you do, what your company name is, and how you got into it.
I'm the CEO and co-founder at Clearmotive Marketing. We have been in business, actually my business partner and I have been working together since 2003, if you can imagine that, Which makes me feel a little bit old. But I was his client and I was setting up a brand at the time, and we bumped into each other and developed a bit of a business marriage. And around 2007, 2008, we had a bottle of wine, we had a long conversation, and we said, we really think there's an opportunity in the market to come at marketing from a business first perspective. And we love creative and we love the power of it. But we decided to establish an agency, and we called it Clearmotive Marketing, because we believe every customer has a motive and every company has a motive. And if you can join the two, which is the space we live in, everybody kind of gets what they want. Because the customer gets access to that amazing product I've been dreaming about. And as a company, who do we want? We want those people that are really going to value and love our services. And if we can get that messaging right in between using all the tactics available, from research right through till metrics and measurement, especially now more than ever, quite different than in '08, it's allowed us to build a very sustainable business with long-term clients. We have a great team in a business arena that never allows you to get bored.
Yeah, fair enough. It's always moving, changing, and very technology driven. I'd be curious to hear about your recent book as well.
That was an adventure in self-discovery, and nothing forces you to think about your thoughts more than writing a book. And a lot like setting goals, you can tell everyone about your goal, but then you have to sit down and do it. So for me, it was a culmination of many, many years of doing podcasts and practicing the art of being curious and seeing how it showed up in my life. But the podcast was such a great little, almost like a dojo, a yoga studio where I got to practice curiosity. And I saw the opportunity of being open, and what came in when I didn't come in with an agenda, I just came in curious. And I said, you know what? I bet this is really a powerful leadership trait. So I started practicing it at work, and this was from basically 2019 onwards. And about 2-3 years into the journey is when curiosity really started to emerge. Like, it was an action first, and then it was like, hey, well, I need to name this. And I looked out there in the world, and no one was really owning curiosity from who owns curiosity. So my social media manager really pushed me to write a book. So I got an editor, I sat down, I wrote a bunch of articles over about a year period of time. And then I wrote the book in about 3 months.
Wow.
But it was 16 months of practice and 3 months of kind of running the race to a certain degree. And it was a fabulous experience. I'm not rushing to do it again, but once I got the flywheel going and I got into the groove, it was a lot of fun. And let me tell you, the best time to write a book is February in Calgary, because -30, what else are you gonna do on a Saturday?
Yeah.
You're going to binge write a book, and getting into free writing and really not editing your own work and having an editor and an external partner. For me, that co-creation and collaboration really made it possible. And it's been fun. It's been fun to point to it. And in so much in the world we live in, you often don't get a really tangible outcome of your work. And a book's pretty tangible.
For sure.
We grew up around them, we've had them our whole lives, and all of a sudden, hey, there's my name on that one. So it was pretty fun from a journey perspective, and the self-discovery of how I arrived at a lot of those thoughts, that introspection was a pretty cool journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sharpened the axe and
it did.
Built those articles out. So all the articles you're making today will be your next book.
We shall see, but yes, a great way to start. Yeah, eat that elephant one bite at a time.
Very cool. Diving into technology, tell me about a time that technology helped you solve a problem.
Oh my goodness, I think technology would almost always be at the cornerstone of everything we do, almost ubiquitously in my life. I'm going to tell you a different story just to throw a wrench into your question, but I embrace technology at a very aggressive level of curiosity because I learned a powerful lesson when I didn't. In around late 90s, I thought the internet wasn't worth paying attention to. And I kind of missed that whole curve. So for me, that was a telltale, or that was a warning of hey, that was wrong. Yeah. So now whenever technology shows up, just AI, even in the last bunch of years, and the role AI has even played as a thinking partner in the early days of writing the book, riffing with ideas. But if I look at our business from starting off with the Adobe Creative Suite being really the backbone of our industry and not being able to deliver to clients without that. So solve a problem or build a business around it. And that's evolved through deeper access to analytics, obviously the channels that have grown. And when we started our agency, Facebook was in its infancy. Now you look at these basically empires that have been created. And when used correctly, like any tool, the ability to connect with your client, connect with your customer, work through a business problem, I think technology is always at the table. So not a direct answer to your question, but I learned a hard lesson when I didn't use technology when I could have at a period of time that maybe would have changed the trajectory of my life, but who knows? I just make sure never to make that mistake twice.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's the lesson in that, right? Just you had to probably catch up from that.
I did.
And get ahead again, right? So just being curious, I guess, is your
Yes, it
new
served me well.
modus operandi. The other question I had was really, have you ever used technology and it's just gone horribly wrong?
Horribly wrong is an interesting position to take. It's like getting the wrong answer, not getting the outcome that we thought about, but what did we learn in the process?
Yeah.
And I think setting up your, everyone loves to say test and learn, but what are you really testing and what are you really learning? So I think earlier on I can look at opportunities even when I first personally got involved in doing pay-per-click and things like that, where it's like, oh wow, like I thought this was going to work, or I didn't set up the system properly. But always metering myself and maybe being enough risk averse at the time to go like, okay, I'll take a chance and I'll use technology to test and learn something. But if it goes, first of all, what am I trying to learn? If I'm trying to test something, make sure it's a clear A/B, or what is the actual question I'm asking? And if it does go horribly wrong, can I walk away from that? Is it a type 1 or a type 2 test?
Yeah.
Where type 1, you can't walk away from it. Type 2, you're like, oh, that's okay, we'll learn again. So I think over the years, if I look back, I wouldn't say anything that went horribly wrong. I've certainly had a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, that was not the outcome that I suspected. What can I learn from it and how do I move forward while kind of minimizing the carnage that might ensue? So not going all in on technology, especially if it's something that I'm unfamiliar with, but at the same time, being curious enough to try it.
So maybe the quicker you can learn and pivot, that's kind of the lesson I hear.
Well, I think that's the world we live in today, right? Where everything is little mini tests and learns, and it's an iterative process, especially AI. It isn't this binary, like I put in the right search criteria and it gave me the right output.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I'm collaborating with it, I'm riffing with it a little bit, and that I think my generation, and I had a conversation this morning with someone on a podcast that made me really think about, growing up in a world where it was right or wrong, pass, fail, and how that's kind of evaporated, and with so much access to technology at such a low barrier, making sure you're not setting yourself up for the catastrophic failure, but also be okay that it is part of a learning process. And then what is fail and what is a win? Yeah. And when you win, sometimes that can also make you falsely confident in what you found out. So I think you always have to be interrogating the results you get.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes you got lucky.
100%.
When you're trying to solve a problem in your business, and maybe it's for a customer, maybe it's internally, where do you usually start? Is it with people or with technology, or how do you decide which one to start with?
Well, give me 59 minutes to understand the problem, and then I'll spend 1 minute finding the solution. I think that's an Abraham Lincoln quote, but I might be bastardizing it. But I think that jumping to the technology too soon is actually something that we've got caught, and there's always a new shiny tool that someone wants to bring to the solution set. Did we really understand the problem? Did we really understand the stakeholders that were involved? If we're trying to optimize for something, did we even understand, we need to change course? What course are we on in the first place?
Yeah.
I was a pilot, that was my first career, and it's hard to adjust your course if you didn't know where you ended up on your track, right? And I think understanding where those drift lines are and kind of where you are in the reference to what you're trying to solve, and unpacking that and understanding the stakeholders at play, that's where I think we're in a very dangerous or tricky world, because we've got so many tech-forward companies and tech-forward platforms with amazing message. They're kind of selling their solutions as the end-all and be-all to all things. Yeah. And it's easy to jump there without taking the time to really unpack, what am I trying to do? What does success look like? And in our world, we're often trying to solve problems for our clients' clients. So how do you get really curious, like almost fanatically curious about what's going on with them, jobs to be done, problems to be solved, pains to be alleviated, and then going, all right, what technologies, because the technology, the solution set is going to have technology in it, but what technologies might best serve that problem to be solved, and not going the other way around. It's so easy to run around with the hammer and the nail and go, I've got GPT, it can solve everything, until it doesn't, because you didn't really understand what you're trying to solve for.
Yeah, 100%. And really focusing on what parts still need the human touch. I think you probably see that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the death of human value has been grossly overstated. I did a quick call this morning with a gentleman out of a large industrial manufacturing. They focus on large manufacturing facilities, but from a digitization perspective. And he was like, it's not about robots, it's about cobots. I'm like, okay, you got me. Tell me about cobots. And he's like, what we're really seeing is the companies that are augmenting and performing at the highest level, and this is on the manufacturing floor in a very automation friendly environment. They've been automating for years. That's not a new phenomenon. They're like, what we are really seeing is those new jobs are alongside the robot. Yes, the robot can do X, but who is bringing the human element to it? And he goes, we're seeing a labor shortage on all fronts, but people really understanding where their role is the human in the mix. And so we're going to have a podcast about it, because it really, I think that's much more true to the future that's ahead of us, is the interrelationships and the co-creation we can undertake now with these amazing tools at our side to facilitate outcomes on a level we've never seen. And the humans that are going to be able to influence that is the path of the future there for me.
Get the robots to do the unsafe ladder climbing and
100%.
Yeah.
And to be able to look like some of those the human traits that maybe technology isn't the best at right now, I think that's an interesting go forward. And yes, certain jobs will go away, but other ones will open up. And I think that gives me a glass half full versus a glass half empty approach.
Yeah, I would agree. I think on the flip side of that, with all the news, and there's obviously a bunch of cyber risks out there, and AI could be perceived as a risk for some people.
Any tool can be used for evil.
How do you build a culture in your team specifically that makes them feel safe and open to experimenting, trying new things, failing, and still feel safe at the end of the day that they're not going to be losing their job?
Leading by example isn't the best way, it's the only way. Mm-hmm. And so, you can insert technology into that. Do people feel safe to take risks? Do people just feel safe? Can they speak up in a meeting? When he's like, is there any questions? And the one person in the back of the room goes, actually, yeah, I actually don't get what we just talked about.
Yeah.
You show me that happening in your culture. Like I can, in the old days in school when there used to be the observer sitting in the back corner, you could go into many corporate boardrooms and be that observer just sitting in the back corner watching what's going on. And if there's a freedom to ask questions, if there's a freedom to dissent, if it isn't the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, who stands up and goes, we shall do this, and speaks in that voice that I used to think was leadership when I was younger, that's not going to be a safe environment when it comes to cyber, when it comes to technology, when it comes to anything.
Yeah.
But if you've got that, and I do believe that there is a level of literacy required at the senior level where you're scared to put yourself out there, even as a leader, of like, I'm not that familiar with some of these technologies. I think it behooves us as leaders to fool around with that stuff. So when it gets brought up, you can at least engage and people go, oh, okay, I'm not bringing something foreign to the room. I'm not bringing something scary. There's an openness here. And I also think having great partners and filling in the gaps, you said cybersecurity, that's real. It's not if, it's when. Something's going to happen from that perspective. And I think doing your due diligence and having a level of governance that's very clear and very transparent with your team, providing training, helping people get exposed to ideas of like what could happen and how it can happen. I think that's very specific, but it's all built on a culture of psychological safety.
Yeah.
And I do believe as a leadership team, now more than ever, we have to have that level of emotional intelligence to really have a degree of empathy with our team. Some of them are overwhelmed. Some of them, let's be honest, all of our teams are overwhelmed. Yeah. And then, oh, by the way, in your spare time, go and learn about this new technology. So I think creating a bit of a playground at work and make yourself the client. For us, so much of our business is our client is our client. But what about if Clearmotive was the client? What would we try? And how do we de-risk that in a sense that not trying is what's wrong. Trying, there's no wrong. Just give it a go. And I think that comes from the top. And I've had to, back to my lesson about the internet, I've changed my tact. And I try to put myself out there and at least be able to be involved and bring those kind of conversations. Even if someone else brings it to the room or I bring it to the room, we're having them.
Yeah, I'm finding because technology is moving so quickly, and really nobody knows all the answers anymore. I think leaders are able to actually be more authentic and come to their team and say, look, I don't know the answer here. I don't know what the right tool is. Let's figure it out together. And they don't look weak, whereas maybe 15, 20 years ago they might have. And their team would have been like, oh, you're not strong. You don't know the answers. Why am I following you, right? And I think it's kind of flipped now, right? Where teams are, the more open to, telling your team that you're not right and you don't know the answer for every different scenario, the more they'll follow you.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're being very optimistic with your 15 or 20 years ago. I think we could go and find corporate boardrooms today, right now, in the city that, well, if I don't have all the answers, how am I going to be the leader?
Yeah.
That was the role. That was the expectation that's put upon me, my leaders before me. I think that it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of courage in some organizations. The cultures you're talking about, I agree, you walk in and it's a little bit more flat. Good ideas come from anywhere. A leader, it's like, I don't know the answer. What do you think? And who doesn't value that as a team member?
Yeah.
But I still think there's a pretty deeply ingrained culture of to be a leader means to have all the answers. One, it's impossible. Two, it's unrealistic, and the burden that puts on the leader just adds to the overwhelm, and it doesn't create space. And nothing new or nothing exciting really comes if you can't create a little space and take a little time.
Yeah, 100%. So do you think technology is making leadership easier or harder?
It's a really, really good question. I think it depends on the context of easy and hard. What do you mean by easy? What do you mean by hard? Does it give you more things, and do you feel more overwhelmed? And I've really been exploring the concept of the working leader, where 90 to 95% of leaders also have their own deliverables.
Yeah.
And now they've got technology, and they have to spend a little bit of time at the 30,000 foot, like jump in the jet and go up and go, oh, I can see what's happening here. So I'd say from a onslaught of too much, it's making it harder. from the perspective of, wow, I have a thinking partner. I can get up on Sunday morning at 7 o'clock and I want to riff on some stuff. And my staff probably don't want to get a call from me. I can jump on Gemini. I can jump on, like, pick a platform. I think from that perspective, it's empowering. But right now we're in the too much, I'm overwhelmed and I don't have the space. For the leaders I know that have gotten really curious and really playful and have freed up maybe an hour or 2 hours, or just even at the most basic level by using some automation, usually AI, but automating some of their workflow, there's an excitement and a sense of like, oh, it could be better. So the leaders I've seen, and I have a lot of these conversations that have embraced it, there's a little bit of hope that there's a little bit of a brighter light at the end of the tunnel if I've got a little bit more space, while simultaneously still being overwhelmed and often being just the do more with less phenomenon that's also happening, and the maybe overpromise that technology can, oh my God, we're going to be working 5 hours a day. I think, wasn't that the promise of technology when we were kids? That hasn't happened yet. So in one hand, I think it makes it more difficult because I've got more things sometimes that are very conceptual and that I feel that I don't know anything about. But the ones that are embracing it, I'm seeing a little bit of a shine. I'm seeing a little bit of like, I'm having some fun with this. And I'm going to go show it to my team. And there creates almost like a little bit of a childlike excitement. And I heard someone say today, it brings a little bit of joy back into it, if you can harness it in a way that makes sense for you. Otherwise, there is a risk it can just be something, another to-do list item, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess really like focus matters, right? Figuring out what's worth focusing on, using technology to find an hour of your day, right? Find that hour back so you can experiment and play,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Play a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My last question is, what's your favorite app these days? What are you using that you're enjoying?
Well, it's funny. It's so funny. I own a rural property just house at a time, so I check the weather way too much. From a work perspective, it's all of our communication tools, from Slack to Asana, like the impact that they've had on our business across the board from a workflow. Like, it wasn't innovative, it was just efficient. And the less reliance on email, the quicker ability to access. We have a full remote team. So there's no such thing as over communicating when you have a remote team.
Yeah.
If you think that person maybe knows, doesn't know, or needs to know, you should communicate with them. Those platforms, I would say, are probably my go-to. And I go back to my flying days. There was always that moment of like, when you do your scan of your dashboard, what's your altitude, what's your attitude, what's your airspeed, like what's going on? And sometimes you cover certain gauges to go, can I still understand what's happening in my environment? So obviously I look at my email, I look at Slack, I look at Asana. If I'm exploring and playing around, Gemini and ChatGPT probably take up a lot of the cycles where I'm going to explore and play. And I'll be on a call and someone will pose a question. I'm like, oh, I wonder what the PPC agency structure looks like in South America right now and which companies are leading. Hey, Gemini, what do you think? So that go-to riffing partner, I would say, is probably what shows up a lot in my life in terms of that. And then there's all the little like, I'm going to explore Lovable today. I'm going to explore this, and a lot of playing around. So I definitely make some space in my day for that. But I would say the core technology set that we use has, since COVID, which was a lot of the catalyst for many of us, like we had some of these platforms before that they were utilized at this much. COVID hit and they were utilized this much. But the efficiency that it's brought into our day, and we joke at Clearmotive, we have all of our cultural elements, but one of the things is, how do we make it easy, ... How do we make it easy for you to find your information? How do we make it easy for you to communicate? How do we make it easy for you to be done at 5? That suite of platforms that we use, from Box to Asana to Slack, have done that always at different levels because everybody still has their own way of engaging. But as an organization, our dashboard now, when I take a snapshot, I can have a pretty clear view of what's going on in my cockpit. And we use the plane analogy because it's fun. Even if one of those gauges went out and I couldn't have access to my Gmail, or my Slack went down, I still have the others. And that cross-section as a leader or someone who doesn't own any of the tasks but has a responsibility towards all of them to a certain extent, right, on my RACI, those really allow me to get a snapshot of my business from a everyday we work better because we have them standpoint. And then really looking at the LLMs, I think probably almost all of them at different times for that playtime and seeing where it can come back and then bringing that to the team. That's been a lot of fun. In the last couple of years, that's just been ramping and ramping and ramping.
Gotcha. Yeah, and really just figuring out that what are the important tools that give you that dashboard, right? Because that's what matters for you as a leader, and empowers your team to get their job done easier, right? And that's one of the things I like to talk to people and say, like, what do you not like to do about your job? Like, let's use technology to get rid of that or make it easier. And the first step of AI and automation is, how do we eliminate it, right? Mm-hmm. How do we not need to do it anymore? And what needs to be true for that to
That's where you get a little bit of that joy, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because often those things that are eating up their day are often not the things that they signed up to do in the first place.
And probably aren't making a difference even in the customer's experience, right? So get rid of them.
Yeah, the admin, the paperwork, the stuff that it needs to be done, but yet who's actually benefiting from that?
Exactly, right?
Governance.
So, Tyler, great to have you on. If people want to learn more about you and Clearmotive, where can they find you?
Clearmotive.ca, check us out online. Also, tylerchisholm.com if you're curious about some of the things I'm curious about. You can find my podcast there. We've kind of put together a new website that makes it really easy to touch on all the things that I'm very passionate about, a variety of topics, from not-for-profit, from philanthropy to even the book. But go to tylerchisholm.com and check it out, and I love to chat. So if anybody wants to reach out, do not hesitate. You can find me on LinkedIn, and that's a great way to direct message me as well.
Grab your book on Amazon, and maybe you'll sign it for him one day.
Awesome, I will. Yeah. My pleasure. Thanks, brother.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Great to have you.
My pleasure.